From the east, house of light, may wisdom dawn in us, so we may see all things in clarity. From the north, house of night, may wisdom ripen in us, so we may see all from within. From the west, house of transformation, may wisdom be transformed into right action, so we may do what must be done. From the south, house of the eternal sun, may right action reap the harvest, so we may enjoy the fruits of planetary being. From above, house of heaven, where star people and ancestors gather, may their blessings come to us now. From below, house of earth, may the heartbeat of her crystal core bless us with harmonies to end all war. From the center, galactic source, which is everywhere at once, may everything be known as the light of mutual love. Ayum hunabku, eva maya e maho. Ayum hunabku, eva maya e maho. Ayum hunabku, eva maya e maho.
Okay. I think you should be able to hear me there, Ruben. Give thanks. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I totally hear you as well. Well, I tell you what, it's great to connect with you. I want to acknowledge anybody who's out here tuning in with this special broadcast. We found it necessary to come online now. Last minute, very much. That's why you sort of heard the rocky beginning there, but with all due respect, the prayer of the seven galactic directions with the voice of Jose Arguelles, and grateful to open in this beautiful way for what we felt was a very compelling reason to come on live with the audience out here, and also for the record, just to really put this on the record. I want to welcome folks tuning in to what we're calling the Galactic Spin. And the interesting thing about that name is it has many layers of meaning. Today, being the red magnetic dragon, is the beginning of a new galactic spin, an actual galactic spin. It also happens to be the first day of the month of September in the Gregorian calendar. And so we're noting and navigating a synchronicity between the two counts, that being the Gregorian calendar as well as the 13 moon count, or more specifically, the 260-day Tzolk'in count. So for that and many other reasons, we're navigating through a very profound time, a window of profound opportunity for healing, for reconciliation, for redemption of a lot of the errors of our collective unconscious and consciousness over the past very many years. So I want to welcome you, Ruben, to the space, and thank you for tuning in, to this responsibility and momentous opportunity. To anytime we can share time, space with each other is a true blessing. So great to see you. And
thank you so much.
Tell us how you're feeling. What are you tuning into? I mean, we have a lot to cover, and we kind of want to lay out an expectation for folks as well to get a sense of where there's a lot to cover. We're not going to attempt to cover every single thing now, but best believe there are layers upon layers of perspective, alignment, information in this harmonic reality that we want to help make conscious. So thank you again for being here and doing this work.
Thank you so much, brother, and Lakesh, to everyone tuning in on this new galactic spin. And thank you for opening the space again, giving the creating like a container for addressing the many narratives that we are now facing and that are challenging. And since our last live stream on Day Out of Time, certainly a lot has shifted, and we are in right now in the second week of the second moon of the 13th moon year, the lunar moon of challenge, and it certainly has arrived with many challenges that we need to address and reframe, so that we don't fall into despair and to the downward spiral that is so easy to these days to follow that line. I feel like everything on the planet has been shifting dramatically for the last 28 days, and that we now have the chance to address it in a conscious way. And in this exercise of addressing these challenges and the cycles that we are closing right now at a micro scale and then at the macro scale, we can find some balance and some coherence that will help us harmonize the perspective on what is happening on the planet, and bring a new perspective, a higher perspective. That I think that's the point of creating this new container and giving this space its own personality, is to find the galactic spin or the positive spin to everything that is happening on the earth, at least the harmonic aspects behind it, so that we can reconcile those aspects that are right now kind of pressing and on the many groups and all layers of human civilization. Right now, I've been facing with tough decisions in terms of our own health, our families, our spaces, our life decisions that are right now coming to terms with what is happening on the planet, and what better way to address all these challenges than using the synchronic order and the lens of fourth dimensional time to understand these cycles and understand the importance of what we are closing today. Not today, during this entire month of September, basically.
So exactly, I mean, there's many layers, as I mentioned, as you've just kind of spoken to as well. So where's a good place to start as we're observing? What makes a good place to start? Especially, let's consider maybe some people are just tuning into this for maybe even the first time. So is there a premise, and then maybe we can get into some of more interesting observations along these timelines?
Yeah, well, I think it's always important to remind the people who are just tuning in or who are new to natural time and to these tracking cycles through these four-dimensional tools, that we are on the big scheme of things, we are in a transition that Jose Arguelles defined as the biosphere noosphere transition timeline, and we are basically every day we are moving one step forward into that transition and what that transition looks like. What happens is that the event, the main event for this month of September, which is 9/11, it's a pivotal point in that timeline, in that biosphere noosphere transition timeline, because as defined and timed in the technosphere and then later in Manifesto for the Noosphere, 9/11, beyond the geopolitical aspects behind it and the conspiratorial aspects, was more an archetypal event that defined what he called the end of artificial time. That this center of the economy of the planet, when it was destroyed, it signaled the coming down of the illusion created by that system. Not we don't want to fall into the geopolitical aspects behind it now, because as we have all been witnessing over the past weeks, the situation in Afghanistan and the end of that intervention in the Middle East is coming to an end, and it's coming to an end right on time. So it's like we are closing on the geopolitical arena an important chapter, but that's not the main chapter that we are closing. I think that we are having the opportunity right now with the 20th anniversary of 9/11 to really put things into perspective and understand also how that event is part of a larger tapestry of events, and that the current planetary emergency on the planet is an extension of that timeline that is based on fear, and that is based on entropy and disharmony, and that behind that veil of illusion there is a harmony taking place, and that the synchronic order is here as is the lens or the tool that allow us to perceive that hidden harmony behind the massive chaos that we are seeing on the outside world in the mainstream media.
Okay.
So I think that the biosphere noosphere transition is a good entry point. This is of course a bigger part of a bigger timeline, which is the evolution of mankind, and we are right now in an age called the Holocene, which is it refers to the effects or the actual footprint that humanity has had on the planet since we appeared. And right now that we are coming to a clear choice point in terms that we are going to either follow the timeline that is dictated by the machine, or are we going to create an organic timeline and follow the natural patterns and cycles in nature and evolve through natural means and not through genetic manipulation of any kind. So I think that maybe we can start from there, because to go back to the essence of this special show today, this transmission, is really to focus on unveiling some of the aspects of this event that are probably occult for the vast majority of people, and basically for the generation who is part of these years, 2000, 2001, entering the millennium, and what this event signaled for that new generation. Certainly, we are now 20 years in the future from that event, and we can see the generational impact of that. Absolutely. So the idea is to with this show, to leave like some historical record also of what are the hidden aspects behind this event that are letting us know that we are actually closing this stage, and we are moving into something different. But we need to make that choice consciously, not unconsciously. And every 20 years, we have the opportunity kind of to really revise these events and make a choice if we want to continue in that direction, or if we want to shift in another direction. And right now we are facing basically two directions: either we are going up or we are going down. And I think that the purpose of the show is to show and to point the ways that we can evolve into this upward spiral and allow the other narratives to fall apart by themselves. And once we make peace with the events that are happening, and with the 20 years of the settling of this event within the biosphere transition timeline, we can have probably a better grip on how to address the coming years with a different perspective.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think what you've said in particular about being able to find the hidden harmony behind these various divergent timelines, as they would appear, that there is a hidden harmony within them. And from the fourth dimensional perspective, through the language of number, we're able to actually communicate in that language and observe the hidden harmony, as you're pointing out. And you mentioned the 20-year window and the impact of this, and what we're calling today the 9/11 generation, really, for anybody who's been on the planet alive and conscious in this window since 9/11, 2001, up to now, almost 20 years to the day. It does present a very unique opportunity for us to make conscious where the fissures have been, and also to observe the ripple effect over the past 20 years, and how it has effectively compounded over the years because we haven't necessarily made these things conscious. And yet at the same time, when you come across this particular threshold, like a 20-year threshold, it provides a very specific opportunity to, from a generational perspective, have that observation, apply the consciousness then by acknowledging and speaking about it in this way. As you said, not to feed the geopolitical narrative per se, recognizing that that's a part of it. And yet again, there's a hidden harmony behind these events. And this is part of what this biosphere noosphere transition is teaching us. And I want to establish a couple of things for listeners as well. So let's speak of the biosphere quickly and just kind of identify what the biosphere means. I mean, obviously bio as in life and sphere as in circle. So I think that's one easy way to comprehend it, or in other words, it's the whole system of our ecology, our environment, the human species, every other living species within the circle of life, that's the biosphere. And the noosphere, to be clear, is a terminology coined nearly 100 years ago to identify the thinking layer or the mental sheath surrounding the planet. And that those who observed this 100 years ago, we can speak to the names and these particular individuals a little bit, but they were making an observation about the time that we're now navigating. In other words, they were looking at it out of a lens of having just experienced World War I and the transition between World War I and World War II, and recognizing as well that these complexities were effectively causing the emergence of the noosphere, or the awareness field, or the thinking layer of the planet, the planetary body that is informed by our collective human consciousness. And that, you know, many things that we may do, many choices we may make, or behaviors we exhibit aren't necessarily conscious, meaning they're things that we do unconsciously, or we don't understand the consequences of our actions. And so largely what I think we've come to understand the noosphere is a tipping point of sorts, where we have to come face to face with our actions. We have to come face to face in consciousness as a human collective with the cumulative actions that we have performed, whether unconsciously or consciously, deliberately, but come face to face with that, because that's the choice point. There's really no escaping or getting around the fact that as a species, we have to now grow up. We have to now face the consequences of our ignorance, of those things we've been either deliberately or unintentionally ignorant toward. And I think that's part of this transition, is what is the shift, the transition from merely being members of this biosphere into this emerging consciousness field of Earth that is informed and catalyzed by the complexity of everything going on. And in the between space of that is this terminology referred to as the technosphere. So you have the biosphere, you have the noosphere, and in between them, sort of the thing we're passing through now, the past 20 years, in many ways, increasingly so, is the technosphere. So I want to invite you, Ruben, maybe speak a little bit about the technosphere in the context of the biosphere and the noosphere as well, just as we kind of lay out a comprehension for what we're looking at, you know, in terms of the transition we're making.
Yes, well, the technosphere is this in between stage, and let's also keep in mind that this stage known as the technosphere is characterized by the expansion of the machine, and the one of the scientists who coined the term noosphere, the sphere of mind, and the next stage of evolution of human consciousness, is Vladimir Vernadsky, the Russian biochemist. And he was explaining, he explained that the technosphere is basically this stage of maximum geocombustion within the planet, that the machine creates so much, well, the man creates the machine, and with the machine we create so much pollution that we enter like in a sort of cocoon stage, like similar to what happens to the butterfly when it creates becomes a caterpillar, and in this cocoon it transforms into something new. So the technosphere is like an artificial layer that we created through our evolution, but it's only like a stepping stone into the next stage, which is organic technologies, not technologies driven by the machine. And even though we right now are surrounded by technology, and it seems very difficult to think about life without technology, well, we also need to expand our perceptions and think that technology is only one path of evolution, creating more clever machines. But the next stage of evolution is really like a symbiotic process of organic process in which we become a larger organism with the earth, and between human beings we become like the neurons of this planetary mind, and some of these neurons start to fire at the same time and synchronize the events that are happening on the biosphere. So we become like also the buffer zone in between the cosmic energies that are arriving through the sun and the galaxy, the galactic center, which, by the way, we are right now undergoing a geomagnetic storm, and we receive a couple of solar flares to start this new cycle. So these solar plasmas and these changes in the Schumann resonance and in the planetary and the magnetic field are generating what Jose Arguelles called a solar biomutation. And this biomutation is now being tampered with by artificial means. This is technology, transhumanism, artificial intelligence, Neuralink, and of course injections, experimental injections. So this is therefore a time to really think about our role in the evolution of the planet, and really tap into our heart of hearts, and decide, make the choices that are more in alignment with this organic future, because it's right now, with the expansion of the control grid and the implementation of what has been defined as the fourth industrial revolution and the Great Reset, which we really know what that means, which is really technocracy, and where civil liberties and freedom, it's lost day by day. So right now we are in that razor edge, and the lunar moon of challenge is kind of bringing us to face with this moment of truth, in which we are seeing this geopolitical theater falling apart, and at the same time we don't want to repeat the next layer of that narrative, but we want to start from a new chapter, from a clean slate. So it's important to wrap these events, and we can revisit them and revisit the trauma and revisit it from a higher perspective, so that we don't get enmeshed into the drama, and we can really see that this is part of a larger process, and that if we keep our minds and our attention in the harmony that is behind this closing of this 20-year cycle of unwanted or unneeded conditions for humanity, we can reprogram, rewrite the script. Basically, we are doing this broadcast is part of that rewriting of the script. Is using this special opportunities, this sacred day, King One, which in the larger scheme also corresponds to one generation, one king in the 13 Bactun map of recorded history of that cycle of evolution that was condensed in the harmonic factor that we closed December 21st, 2012, was 260 generations. So basically after 2012 until 2032, we are in this the next generation of the evolution of the noosphere, and the first generation of the noosphere. But at the same time, when we track through the Gregorian perspective, 2021 marks precisely the completion of one generation from 9/11. So those two aspects of the geopolitical added to the harmonic closing of this cycle on Kin 11, September 11, during a window that both the Gregorian calendar and the Solkin are going to be synchronized for the next 30 days. The entire month of September is allowing us to really keep track on a daily basis of this synchronization. And it's important to make this conscious now, because today, Kin 1, we are basically at the exact midpoint of a 20-day cycle, which is the last 20 days of the last 20 years from 9/11. And these last 20 days are part of also the completion of cycles that are nested within each other. And so basically every 28 Solkins, we complete, we are 20 days to complete 20 years from any event. So for instance, if we want to know what is the date of an event in the next 20 years, we just need to add 20 kin to the date. So this date in 20 years would be, instead of Kin 1, Kin 21. So in the same way, 10 years ago, we were on Kin 1, or 9/11. So 9/11 was part of let's say, and it's an intersection of the timelines that is perfectly mapped in the Solkin. And I will share, like, here very. Let's see if I can share this screen.
Perfect.
Okay, it's just that I'm you cannot see my screen yet, right?
Not yet.
No. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to go this way. Perfect. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, to go back to where we were before oops, I think my computer froze.
Okay. Yeah. There we go.
Okay, let me see now. Now you can see now.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So we are speaking about the redemption of the 9/11 generation and how this 20-year, 20-day timeline is very clearly presented on the Tzolk'in in the way that will allow us to make sense of the process that we are closing right now. As we were mentioning at the beginning, we are right now at a choice point, and basically the 9/11 event was the end of the artificial timeline. We are just making it conscious as the, let's say, as the dust settles of this event, and not only on the 3D but on the 4-dimensional aspects too. And this is part of the start of what we call the Noospheric Emergence, this initial moment of entering this new stage of evolution based over a new paradigm based on time is art. We are closing, in December 21st, 2012, we close the cycle of recorded history, which is driven by the machine and the artificial timing frequency, the Gregorian, well, the 12-month calendars and the mechanical clock. And we are moving into a future that is based on harmonics, on time is art. So the 9/11 timeline, we can map it on the Tzolk'in thanks to the HeartMath Institute and Institute of Noetic Sciences. They map the geomagnetic activity of the Earth, and that day, 9/11, it was recorded a spike in that field at 9 a.m. right before the first plane hit the first tower. So that is this moment of time is let's say the crack, the initial crack for the noosphere to descend on Earth and to bring the illusion down. Everything that we have been living for the past 20 years is basically an illusion, and we are right now just making that illusion more conscious. So
Exactly.
this 20-year, 28 Tzolk'in redemption cycle, how does it work? The Twin Towers were inaugurated on the 4th of April, 1973, which is Kin 11, and they were destroyed on September 11, 2001. Kin 251. And as we can see on this chart, both are on the opposite sides of the Tzolk'in matrix. And what makes this special is now that the 20 days that started on the 28th day of this year, the day 28 of this magnetic moon, was Kin 251. And that day, we completed 28 Tzolk'ins from 9/11/2001, and the coming 9/11 is going to fall exactly 50, I think it's 58 Sulkins after the inauguration, and also it's going to be the 116th Sulkin return from Jose Arguelles. So this is the person who made conscious this timeline, and that we close on September 11, 2001, 2 cycles of 28 years each that are defined as the Age of Terror. And this 56 cycle is comprised by 2 cycles of 28 years, one that goes from 1945, from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, to 1973, the inauguration of the towers, and another 28-year cycle that goes to the destruction. So as we can see, from 1973 to 2001, there is 28 years. And that's the cycle, the permutation cycle of the Gregorian calendar. That's the program. That means that every 28 years on the Gregorian calendar, there is a record that tends to play in a similar song. And we have the chance to play a different song this time, because this completion of 28 Sulkins right before completing 20 years, with these relationships with the inauguration and the destruction, are letting us know that we are basically wrapping this cycle, and that the narrative is shifting. So we just need to make this conscious, and
Exactly.
And the more we make it conscious, the more chances it has. We have to shift it. And the very important aspect is that if we add the signatures, which is the inauguration kin 11 and the destruction kin 251, is kin 2, which is tomorrow. So basically, also the unified signature of this event is contained within this cycle.
Exactly.
What makes this container even more harmonic and more coherent. So the idea is that let me stop sharing.
I wanted to point out then that would make tomorrow a Magic Turtle Day in the 13 moon calendar as well.
Oh, yeah.
Being that it's the same tone for the month as it is for the day itself, that tomorrow is the white lunar wind. And as you say, if that's the factor of those alpha date and omega dates combined, is kin 2. That's beautiful. I also want to just point out the fact that you're saying this is a creative opportunity for us in a way that we were caught blindsided by the events 20 years ago. I think for people who, if they recollect where they were, everybody can probably pretty much remember where they were on 9/11/2001. And I think I know for me personally, I was in Washington, D.C. And when these events occurred, I remember that evening, I lived in a house with some fellow artists, and early that morning, I was up late that evening before, and I was writing a song, in fact, and then and it was a really auspicious song. And then when I went to bed, I remember waking up, even though I went to bed at 3 a.m, I got up at like 8:30, like feeling fully rejuvenated. It was amazing. And I walked to my window in my bedroom. I look outside. I literally remember breathing in the fresh air because the morning was so cool and the air was so clear. And then I went downstairs to eat some cereal or something and turn the television on. And then I'm seeing, the images that everybody was seeing all over the world. But I'm seeing the second tower get hit in real time. I'm watching it when that happens because I see the initial report of the first tower being hit before 9 o'clock and that whole experience. And then being near the Pentagon, right there in Virginia, right on the border of Washington, D.C. as well, with all that was being portrayed happening there. I mean, it was such a suspended animation moment for everybody. And in some ways, I describe it as a loss of innocence, energetically, perhaps. And I think as we now look back along the timeline and reflect along the spiral back at those events and all that has happened since then, all the revelations, all the information that's come to the light, the surface, we can surmise that, you know, we have in many ways been manipulated. I think that it's fair to say that the human species was manipulated in many ways by that event, because there are so many layers to these events. It's not just a straight narrative of, oh, it was this attack from the Islamic world on American soil, and that's the end of the story. And then we have this whole narrative that leads us into, you know, all of the things that have happened in the past 20 years. So what is now available to us at this turn of the spiral for our generation, that in many ways had its innocence stripped, and as you said, like that being the end of artificial history, like artificial time, the end of history, that event like pulled the veil down in many ways. And it left us there bewildered and shocked because of the enormity of the event. And I know for me, it took some time to work through the psychological sort of like, wow, what does this really mean? What does this actually represent? And I have other stories I could tell, but I'll spare the details at the moment. But suffice it to say, healing from that rip, that tear in the fabric of our consciousness is one of the most important things we can do right now at this turn in the spiral. And that's why we're seeing parallel events reflected across the timeline up to now. As you pointed out earlier in the conversation about what we're seeing in Afghanistan, how it's bringing that to a completion in a way on some level. And what we're invited to is this moment of how will we apply our heart, and at our hearts, at the core of our hearts, our creativity, to the invitation to what this moment wants to see next. Because it is true, we're at a choice point in a way, you know, between organic versus inorganic. And what was in many ways destabilized at the end of artificial time represented the destabilization of this like abject, materially dominated thinking that we have to shift from as a species. If we are to survive and evolve, we have to shift from the domination code mentality that has been placed on our consciousness for centuries. And the 9/11 event in many ways represented an initiation that we didn't realize we were going to be initiated by as a species. And now it does, as you're saying, we need to make this conscious, and why it's so important now, because we have a window of opportunity as we transition through these timelines to align our consciousness to the factors of alignment that will effectively be amplified in the noosphere, in the collective mind that is emerging and becoming conscious in real time. And so that's one of the reasons why we'll be actually endeavoring over the next several days to take certain aspects of this story that was in many ways written and scripted for us and begin to rewrite and reframe the story in so much as where we actually are creatively guided and divinely inspired to help shift and move the energy. And it does begin with acknowledging like we're doing now. So I wanted to point that out. Just that yes, the creative opportunities is a window that we don't want to miss. And given all the various layers that we're navigating now, we cannot afford to miss it. But we want to make it coherent. And there's a lot also to make coherent. And we'll have some images and things to share. I wanted to mention to people that we will be endeavoring to share some reflections over the next several days, as much as we can, as we near the 20-year mark and that marker point and the 28 Tzolk'in plus 20 days marker on that date. I just want to reiterate that it's a 20-year anniversary, and it's also a 28 Tzolk'in plus 20 days timing. So we begin to really look at these factors of number and appreciate the beauty and the elegance and the harmony inherently that they are patterning. Then we can understand how various events in our personal lives, as well as for the planetary evolution, we can look at these various events like August 6, 1945, and the bombing in Hiroshima, you know, understanding that ripple effect over a 28-year window, you know, from 45 to 73, and then 28 more years from 73 to 2001. And we know, again, you mentioned that as well. So again, these numbers, I just want to reiterate that for folks, because the numbers are really the hidden harmony. It's the hidden harmony in the numbers. That's what I think has us so inspired to want to share this information with people, because the language of numbers, the fact is all is number. And the numbers are the codus by which these truths are communicated, and these windows become conscious to us. And so we're in this organic emerging reality, and we're a part of it happening. It is happening with us and through us while we're even having these conversations, while you're considering these topics. And, you know, as we apply our consciousness, as we track these days over the next 10, 11 days, to be conscious of this and to actually energetically as individuals or in community or with your families, you know, really take time to activate the absolute opposite of what was enacted 20 years ago. The fear was enacted 20 years ago. We have to now take the opportunity to apply with as much strength as we can muster the love, to literally reclaim what was taken by those events. As much as what was altered and shifted, something was also taken from us. And I'm looking at this window of opportunity to reclaim that innocence, that quality of innocence I'm speaking about, that, you know, is inherent to each one of us. And that was in many ways, as I said, through sheer manipulation, we've all been played. And so we have to come to terms with that as well. And whatever that may mean for you, and it's up for individuals in their own purpose journey to self-reflect and contemplate ways in which they've been played. We've been played as a species in many ways. And you speak about the organic versus inorganic and the transition toward the singularity approach and the man blending with machine and other invasions of our physiology and our consciousness, other frequency jams and things that have been attempted to either distract us or completely, just dissolve and disorient us in many ways. We've been very disoriented. Like, I can remember the images from 9/11 and people stunned right down there at the ground zero site, completely disoriented. But in the microcosm of that direct ground zero experience, I think that there was a great disorientation among the human mind as well with that event. And so in the process over these next several days, we want to take the time to look at these angles and perspectives from the fourth dimensional perspective, from the fourth dimensional lens into these third dimensional affairs. We'll get into a bit more of the book with Jose Arguelles as well in terms of time in the technosphere, because I think it's worth revisiting that book that was written, you know, within the months to follow. I think he wrote it maybe in the month of March 2002. I think the book was released. But in any case, you know, he really does make an analysis of the relationship between the destruction of the towers and the advent of the noosphere. And we will continue to speak about the noosphere so that we it becomes like something second nature to us. Because at the end of the day, as I said before, we don't have a choice but to grow up as a species and to recognize that we have a role to play in consciousness with this experience and how we're experiencing it all the same. Yeah, come on, mute.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree with what you were saying, and it is also important to make conscious that this illusion that has been played or projected on the movie screen of our consciousness on TVs, and it's kind of replayed by mainstream media. We are already seeing Spike Lee coming with a documentary for 9/11, of course, with his frame of reference, his perspective. And there's also a live event that is going to, the people from the movie Thrive are going to do with David Icke to bring awareness from their perspective to this. And our contribution is to bring this awareness of the cycles and the hidden layers that we are not able to see from 3D. And this illusion, this timeline of the illusion that started in 9/11 has like a counterpart, which is the time of there's a downward spiral that is basically the coming down of that illusion, and there is an upward spiral, which is the emerging of the noosphere through that realization that it's been a big game, and that the current planetary emergency is like the last chapter. It took place 19 years after 9/11 of that narrative. So we have the amazing synchronicity that 9/11, the 20th anniversary, is synchronizing with the 11th seal and the 11th tone on the Solkin matrix, which is basically we are moving from a timeline that is the 9/11 timeline is an entropic timeline, and to an 11/11 timeline, which is a synchronic or syntropic timeline. So the shift from a fear-based scenario to a creative opportunity that is available right now. It just we really need to make this distinction right now.
Yes.
So that we can make the best out of this cycle. That we can actually, the tone 11 is also about dissolution and liberation.
And liberation, exactly.
Yeah. So we are dissolving and liberating from all these layers of illusion, and we are just making those layers conscious here, so that we can also have like a brighter take on the events that are unfolding and that will keep unfolding in the geopolitical theater, but that does not compare with what we are seeing in the background. And actually, if we analyze just the third dimensional aspects of this recent episode in Afghanistan, we were making conscious that also the authorization by the US Congress to use military force was September 18, 2001, exactly 7 days after 9/11. That was Kinto 58. And the troops retired Quinto 59, August 30th, right before closing this galactic spin. That's another indication that we are wrapping up cycles within cycles.
28 Zolkins plus 1 day.
Zolkins.
Plus 1 day. Yeah.
Plus 1 day.
The plus one factor. We love that.
Yes. So we are making more and more of these layers conscious on a daily basis. Because this is the like I was mentioning before, like the dust is settling, and now we can see these structures emerging with clarity, elegance, the neutrality, because number, like you were mentioning, is the beauty of it is that is neutral, so it allows to keep a balance between our left and right hemispheres, and bring some resolution to questions that we have been just asking from the third dimensional perspective, that we are much better equipped to address them with these tools, so that we can just let them go and let them dissolve, and trust that the intelligence that is governing the evolution of the planet is also taking care of these artificial narratives.
Yes.
We are speaking about artificial intelligence and organic intelligence, and I think that there's still, even though the artificial intelligence has advanced a lot in the last 20 years, it still do not compare with organic evolution, but the miracle that life is.
It's one thing you were saying earlier too, just in describing, the astronomical, astrophysical reality of the action of the sun, the actions of these various stellar bodies. The sunspots, for example, in a way represent technology. This is an organic technology, this energy of the sun. I mean, let's just accept the fact that were it not for the sun, we wouldn't have any technology. It wouldn't even be a conversation. So leaning towards that which is organic is highly recommended right now in all of our decisions, both as what we consume, physiologically through food and our sources for nutrition, as well as in terms of consciousness, awareness, information. Leaning into the organic is highly advised. And what's also more is I think that we've been subjected to organized distraction and a clamor, in a way, a noise, a sort of just a layer of disruption, and preventing us from recognizing and hearing, tuning into the technology that we embody, the technology that we are, the organic technology of our physical spacesuits, for example. What to speak of the technology of our minds? That's one of the things that we're becoming, I think, now more aware of, is because time is art, because it is qualitatively expressed, that when we begin to take a particular qualitative perspective towards ourselves and anything we may encounter or navigate in this life, that we begin to have a different vibrational experience with it, where maybe before we weren't operating with as much awareness or alignment to who we are, and we may have found ourselves having other initiations that may have been far more difficult. But as we begin to accept the fact that there is a harmony, there is a divine order to all things, and we get into alignment with that, then the experiences of synchronicity, of the everyday magic, of that experience of love and appreciation grows and grows and grows. And that's kind of some of the bifurcation we're experiencing. You have all the narratives that are sort of, projecting separation and fear, and kind of acquiescing to this contract or agreement to just kind of go along with, well, technology's going that way, let's go along with it. Whereas, at what cost, when in fact, if the solar system, if the heavenly bodies are the real technology, and we are organically parts of that experience, as we become more consciously aligned and accept our capabilities, our capacities consciously and creatively, there's no telling how a focused, heart-centered, emphasis and amplification will help shift things in a beautiful way as well. And so I want us to enjoy this next several days from a perspective of what's possible, because it is the yellow electric seed year. We like to call it the year of yes. So as we explore what's possible, while also identifying what has been happening, acknowledging what has been happening. Part of our work is to look at how we use calendars, in particular the 13-moon calendar, 28-day calendar, to decolonize the mind. We want to acknowledge what's happened over the eons of having been subjected to colonized thinking in many ways, and what this work and this effort is to actually dissolve that, the inhibition and the limitation that's been to each of us, and emerge more into, as we return to nature, emerge into this noospheric reality. And that's what we hope to also support people in making this transition consciously with each other, because at the end of the day, it also comes down to the reality that everything is interconnected. And a baseline for the fourth dimension is to start there. Start with the understanding that everything is interconnected. Number one, and from that perspective, then consider how you would treat yourself, because how I'm going to do that to anyone else is what I'm doing to myself, right? It's the attitude through an indigenous lens. It's, what befalls the earth befalls man kind of thing. So we want to be in right relationship, in the proper alignment with truth and reality, as Mother Earth is making this transition consciously as well. So it's a very exciting time. I feel, if I'm feeling anything, I'm feeling excitement and exuberance for what this can actually mean for our collective, for people who are in various stages of recognizing and reawakening and realigning and getting into right relationship with what's happening.
Absolutely. And just to add a couple of thoughts to what you expressed, this organic technology that we have the fortune to embody, it's quantum. We speak that the artificial intelligence is based on quantum computers, which are these super advanced big machines that go into the quantum, into the void, and extract the possible, most probable scenario and feed that back to us. But we can even change that feedback loop because we know what the machine has been feeding us for the last 20 years. So we have now the conscious opportunity to really reframe that narrative and own our quantum computer, our third dimensional quantum computer that allow us to connect with the universal mind. Spaces of the senses, time is of the mind, and all creation is mental first. So we are connected to source and to the original spark, and that is the quantum. That is the place where we can go and shift in reality in just by the fact of thinking a different possibility.
Absolutely.
The more people on the planet who can be open to that possibility and who can create based on a new set of principles and values, this is the opportunity. This is that means that we need to align our mind, our hearts, and our bodies, and be very coherent in what actions and what emotions and what thoughts are we going to entertain on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, I think, given that we're going to revisit this for days ahead, I feel like this has been a good way to introduce this conversation. And I think in the days to follow, there'll be certain repeating of some of the things we've mentioned now, but also unpacking quite a bit more. Because along with this work, we've been doing the time tracking that engages the Fibonacci sequence. I think some of that will come to bear in some of the conversations moving forward as we're looking at some of the tools and technologies to bring to mind for people to recognize we do have these amazing physical vessels. We do have powers of consciousness and thought to begin to engage. And we do have the tools such as the 13 moon 28-day calendar, the 13 moon calendar, synchronometer, for people to begin to engage as well, to understand the language of the new time, so that when we're speaking in these terms, they're not so foreign to people as with a bit of repetition and beginning to communicate these ways, it becomes second nature, actually. And we just want to help encourage people in their journey of discovery and purpose, that there are tools that are here to be of help. And we're excited to learn also what others are doing out there, with their various modalities and methods that are being brought forward now as well. Because in this time of transformation, it takes all souls involved and everybody bringing their gifts, their talents, their skills, their magic, their joy, and their heart's intention into this work. So we look forward to learning more from others out there as well. And we invite people to tune into our work online. The Facebook page is Harmonic Convergence 2020 to 2028. And our YouTube channel is youtube.com/The Harmonic Factor. And we invite you to follow our work there and also reach out. We'd love to collaborate and find ways to expand awareness about these topics, as well as find out how what you're up to in the world on your purpose journey is also lining up in this amazing symphony, this rhythmic symphony that we are all a part of participating in this path of evolution on the planet at this time. So, Brother Ruben, I want to thank you for your presence and your diligence and your devotion to the truth. And thank you for everything you've shared today. And to all our kin out there on the planet celebrating the new galactic spin, wishing you all the best in peace and prosperity and joy and right placement, that you are always in the right place at the right time, and more synchronicity and more meta. To all of you and your families, all of your endeavors as you consciously, along with us, make this biosphere-noosphere transition, this frequency shift. So thank you all, and we'll again check in with you tomorrow as we continue the journey and amplification of these awarenesses among the human family. If you have any closing words, Ruben?
No, I think that actually we covered far and wide the most important aspects, and we will probably be publishing also like a blog so that we can have like for those people who prefer to dive into these subjects with more graphics and with a little bit more of detail. This blog is going to be available between tonight and tomorrow, and we hope that it becomes like another stepping stone in the process of liberating our souls and our minds from the illusion of the technosphere. So thank you so much, and thank you to everyone listening. We see you in the Noosphere in Lakesh.
Alakin, brother. All right, man. Respect. Peace.